I worked a little bit more without having the video on, and I will now do some time lapse. You can see that I'm beginning to define the shape of his hair, but once again, I'm not drawing every single strand of hair. I'm just looking at the movement and the direction of the hair. As well, I have added in a little bit more of that background tone because I want the light from that window to hit the face, because that's one reason why I chose this, because I like the lighting. Secondly, you might notice if you are also drawing Mr. Fenderson that I have his head down a little bit more than it actually is. I've got the shapes correct, but I don't have the angle quite exactly the same. It's not really going to make a difference because in a drawing, it's not necessarily going to be exact anyway. So you're just giving the sense of who that person is. That's also going to come very true as I work on the glasses. As I've said earlier, I don't want them to look like goggles, so I'm going to understate them. I'm going to make them slightly darker on the part that you see as black, but as far as the glass part, I'm going to really understate that. A real quick note about eyebrows. We have a tendency to want to make eyebrows a solid thing. So like draw them like this and fill them in. But eyebrows are hair, so they also grow out of the skin. In Mr. Fenderson's case, you're just going to see a little hint of eyebrow because there's a lot of lighter color in it, so you're going to draw the shadows more than you're going to draw the eyebrow itself. So some of the other people, you're going to actually see shapes, but make sure that when you put that eyebrow in, that you draw it so you can see the direction of the hair, and don't make it heavy. It shouldn't look like a cartoon eyebrow. It should feel like it is growing out of the hair, out of the skin. So don't be too heavy with it. Now I realize that there are people who actually draw their eyebrows and they look kind of like this, but nobody in the set of pictures that I gave you is going to look like that. So just with everything else, you need to look at how that eyebrow actually sits on the person's face, how heavy it is, and the direction that the hair goes. And in the case of some people, you're going to just sort of indicate those eyebrows without drawing them really, really heavily. Couple more quick little pointers. First of all, we talked about things that are not permanent, don't get included, and that is going to be the case with some of his stubble on his face. Now, if somebody has that half shaved sort of stubbly look on purpose and it's a little bit longer, then you would want to include that. But in this case, it isn't meant to be a fashion statement. It's just a little bit of whiskers you see there, so you're not going to put that in. Also, you might have noticed that I've put just some tone down there. The lightest part in this is going to be the light hitting the face, so you don't want the highlight here to be less light than this area. So in other words, this needs to be lighter than here. So everything is going to be in at least a little bit of shadow, except for a few little areas where that light is hitting. Also, as well, you're going to notice that in some places, especially on men, you can see through to the scalp on the hair. So in that case, you're not going to make it look really, really, really heavy. Also, we've talked about ears before. Don't be afraid of ears. Some people have said to me, well, they're kind of ugly. Well, they're really not. I actually love the way that ears just kind of flow. So look to see what's happening there and don't be afraid of it. Go ahead and put those shapes in. As well, on the chin area here, or the jawline, some people's are going to be really defined and other people's are not. So don't put what isn't there. So if I were to put a really heavy jawline in Mr. Fenderson, it's not going to look right, partly because of the way he has his head turned, but also that's just everybody has their own individual shape. When you see, like in this example here where his chin comes in, his shirt is going to be the shadow under this highlight, and make sure that you allow that to happen, because that's going to be a really good technique to help you bring your form together. Another thing about this shirt, it has a pattern on it. It's actually got lines on it. I'm not going to include that. You certainly can if you want to, but it isn't really necessary because I'm just going to let the shirt fade away anyway. But as you can see, it's beginning to take shape, and I've got quite a bit more shading to do, but you can certainly tell that it's human, and then it's beginning to look like Mr. Fenderson. Still have to work on this chin. It's sticking out too far, so I have to bring it in a tiny bit more. But I will make that correction before I'm done.